With me today is Daniel McAdams, our co-host. Daniel, good to see you.
Good morning, Dr. Paul. How are you?
Very good. The news is not necessarily good, but I'm doing well. And we'll talk about a subject that will be a disappointment, I know, to me. The fact that we've talked about this a lot, and that is they have, gotten Assange, and they're going to continue his vicious treatment. Some people say that he's been tortured, and I don't think he was waterboarded, but living the way he's had to live for 6 years now, I mean, he has had a rough time, and I think he's been essentially in solitary confinement, living in the embassy. But the Ecuadorians removed his status and kicked him out of the embassy. And can you believe it? The British police were right there. They couldn't wait. As a matter of fact, they didn't wait till he walked out on the street. They just marched in and made sure they got him, and they arrested him. He's been convicted, I understand now, because of some charge made way back that he didn't show up under dire circumstances to a hearing. But he has suffered a lot. I think this is a real tragedy for all journalism, which means all the people who are trying to find the news. And I think he fits into the category that we've talked about so much, and that is that truth is treason, when you have an empire. But he doesn't even technically belong to our empire. He's not a U.S. citizen, but no, he was dealing with some of our secrets, and he wasn't a journalist, they claim. And the judges make fun of him to say that he didn't get a fair trial. I mean, within minutes that they say, hey, you're convicted. And it's something like, when this first thing started, there was a charge concocted in Sweden, probably at our request, that there were some sexual charges, which is not unusual to occur, but they were dropped because they obviously were phony. But anyway, this is a big issue. I don't think it'll be too long. He will be extradited. He is my estimation. He will be extradited, and he will suffer the consequences. I think the only thing now that might stop this is public pressure. And there are some groups out there, probably groups much bigger and influential than ours, but we have a few people who care about it, and we're going to have to encourage people to get to their elected officials and get some publicity for this, because this is obviously a miscarriage of justice if there ever was one.
I don't know if people have probably seen it, but we did have some video we wanted to cue of the arrest itself and showing him being dragged out really like an animal from the embassy. It's pretty dramatic stuff to see this. He looks like he's in terrible shape. He's pasty and white. He's been locked in this embassy without medical care for, as Dr. Paul said, 7 years. Well, justice is swift. You're right. He was already before a judge in the UK. The judge called him a narcissist who cannot see beyond his own self-interest. So probably pretty impartial judge, I guess. But now he's going to be held, and the extradition hearings, I guess, will take place in May. It's probably a pretty automatic thing. The judge is actually encouraging him to go for expedited extradition to the U.S. He says the advantage is you can go over to the United States, resolve this matter, and get on with your life, without happening to mention the fact that he's facing the death penalty. So that's British justice for you. He is, of course, being charged in the U.S., as we found out this morning from the UK Metropolitan Police. The extradition charge is that he conspired with Chelsea Manning to steal and release this information about the crimes that the U.S. military was committing in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah, and I think we haven't heard the last of that, because the far left, they'll never give up, and they're not going to give up. And if they see the slightest bit of information that they might be able to stir Russiagate up again, they will do it. So we can expect that to happen. But there will be very little defense in this trial, allowing people to defend him as a journalist. And, this definition of journalist is something else. I'm very generous in making that definition because I consider what we do is journalism. Maybe that's a stretch, but journalism should be very, very generous, and back in the old days, maybe the journalists meant newspapers and pamphleteering, but I think anybody who promotes and distributes information is journalistic, and they should have protection, under the law and not treated, well, you said the wrong thing, we're going to throw you in jail.
Well, it's one of the reasons we're outraged, but we're also afraid because we are journalists. This is personal. This is what we do. What's to stop, if they can get away with this with Assange, what's to stop them from running through that door right now and doing it to us? As Gunn Greenwald has pointed out, who's been a friend of whistleblowers, of course, from the very beginning, he says that the Department of Justice in the U.S. claims that part of what Assange did to justify his prosecution is that he encouraged Manning to get more documents to release. Well, that's what journalists do. When a journalist has a source, what does he say? No, don't bring me. No, that's just normally what journalists do. Bring me more information. You're my source. And a lot of it is classified. In fact, all major newspapers, television, CNN, etc., they've all broadcast the same things that WikiLeaks has published. So when are they going to be arrested? We shouldn't hold our breath.
This is an explanation or demonstration on how powerful the empire is. I think our empire is shrinking in power. I think they eventually will lose it. We'll have the economic crisis, and we will not be king of the hill militarily. But as for now, we're in control, and countries do our bidding. And I've said so often about our foreign policy, they do our bidding. We tell them what to do, and they obey, and we give them money. If they don't, they can expect some violence or an overthrow or a coup or something like that. So this shows, though, how easily the countries are intimidated. I mean, how could anybody have a lot of respect for the people in Great Britain? Why would the people go along with that? Do they pay attention? Do they care? You'd think there'd be a few people there, but no, the British just roll over. They do what we tell them, and that means that we definitely are in charge of what's happening. And this whole extradition thing, it's almost magic. It's not like this is some criminal that committed a violent crime in the United States. It was a United States citizen or something like this, and he's trying to escape. Extraditing an individual like that is something else. But this guy is not in that category, and yet he's being treated much more viciously. This type of a crime of telling the truth, it's considered treasonous, and they use this word, treasonous. He's committing treason against the United States. Well, people that are foolishly and erroneously punishing a person like this are committing some crimes far worse than what he ever did or ever thought about doing, because I think his goal in life was getting truth out. I don't think he was doing this because he was rolling over in the dough either. So he has suffered a whole lot, but there's unfortunately not enough defense of him, and that's one thing I hope we can do. This is just broke this the whole story, but I just hope there's a people listening and watching our program that will consider, what can I do about it? What can I do about it? Yeah, we don't like it either. Well, we had a small audience a while ago, and our audience gets bigger, but everybody has an audience. You have friends and neighbors and family, and you do have access to your elected officials. I know people are rather frustrated with that, but it's still worthwhile. Believe me, that's the way Vietnam War stopped. And if there is an outcry loud enough, even the judges could become political. So, but it's pure politics now. And of course, the president's been on both sides of this issue, but I don't think the administration, you'll have Pompeo and Bolton and a few others that will be, guiding this, and it won't be good for Assange.
That's true. And the attitude in the corridors of power now is not very good. In fact, Senator Manchin, I think West Virginia, tweeted out this morning, quote, "We own Assange," which is pretty disgusting. And as you say, really it is up to Trump, really, and it may come down to whether or not he is going to issue a pardon. He's on record probably 100 times saying, "I love WikiLeaks." He said it in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania during the campaign. But the problem is all Trump's people, all of his top people want Assange dead. In fact, literally. And this goes, okay, number one, Pence. He was actually in Ecuador last year. Of course, the Ecuadorians, they want a big IMF loan. We need some money. The president who gave Assange asylum was replaced by a president who wants to make a deal. So Pence went over there and made a deal. Hey, cancel Assange's asylum and you'll get your IMF loan. And of course, he bit on it. Pompeo, of course, he was a CIA director back in 2017 when he gave an unbelievable speech at CSIS. Here's a couple of things he said. And in fact, we had Assange himself at our conference that summer where he talked about these quotes. Pompeo said, "WikiLeaks is a non-state hostile intelligence often abetted by state actors like Russia. To give them the space to crush us with misappropriated secrets is a perversion of what our great Constitution stands for. It ends now."
Boy.
Very chilling.
Scary stuff. You know, Ellsberg did not have to go to prison, and he, in a way, won. Except he won on a technicality on the way the proceedings go. So this means that Assange needs the best attorneys available, and at least back then they were willing to be judicious enough that if they were breaking the rules in the process that they couldn't convict him under those circumstances. But whatever that can be done, but I'm sure he needs money for his attorneys and everything else, and I bet it's not difficult to find out how you can directly help him. But I think the public pressure is the most important thing, to talk to our representatives, because if they think nobody cares, they're not going to care. And right now, I have no good feeling for how Congress would even come down on this. I think right now my estimate would be, from my experience here, would be whatever is safe. Whatever is politically safe, which means that they need to hear noise. They need to hear noise, and they better not say, yeah, we have to vote to extradite him and do this and try him and do all these things. But they should realize that it isn't automatically politically safe to just pile on and say, well, he committed treason and he's disloyal to the United States and all these arguments and forget about seeking out the truth.
Well, here's the problem. Here's why he's going to have a hard time finding anyone in Washington, because he told the truth. And telling the truth hurts the state. He hurt the state by showing what the U.S. was doing. We weren't liberating Iraq. We were killing a bunch of innocent people. The policy was horrible and we did terrible things. The state doesn't like that. It challenges the state. So this is when both sides, as you talk about, they'll come together and they'll have a bipartisan reaction, because that's the thing they fear the most.
You know, things were going fairly well because he had been declared a citizen and he was allowed to be in the embassy. And then there was an election in Ecuador, and the president then was more friendly. And then there was an election of, believe it or not, Lenin Moreno, and he's anti-Assange. He's the one that flipped the table. But so without knowing, so I shouldn't say this without knowing, but I'm suspicious that Moreno might be have been influenced by the United States government. I'd like to have somebody go back and check up on that election.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned we've dealt with Assange's team, his legal team, and others, and they do a very good job. And so I would just echo what you said about people wanting to support them to get him the best representation he can have. But the other thing, Dr. Paul, that people might be wondering, and I was wondering at first, really, is what comes next. And I think what comes next, as our subtitle suggests, is a show trial. And this is classic, and it's disturbing because it really echoes the Soviet show trials of the 50s. And I would actually encourage our viewers, if you haven't read Arthur Koestler's Great Darkness at Noon, that will tell you exactly what a show trial is like. What's the purpose of a show trial is not to convict someone of a crime. The purpose of a show trial is to tell the rest of the people in the country, don't you dare do anything like this person did, or you're going to get it. That's the purpose. First, you have to obfuscate what he actually did. We're already seeing that, Dr. Paul. They say it's not about press freedom. It's about hacking. They were hacking. That's the illegal part. They want to obfuscate what he did. Then they want to demonize him to the public. That's an important phase. They'll put out more salacious details, sexual, embarrassing details. I bet they'll put out some financial impropriety to divide people against him. That's important. And then at the end, when all this is done, there can only be one verdict. You know, and I have a good friend of mine who lived in Albania during communism, and he told me how the trials go. And of course, this is exactly what they do. And at the very end, the people's prosecutor says, "I'm sorry, the comrades have all said, the people have said you're guilty. How can I rule against the people?" And that's exactly what we're going to see here. And it's really disturbing and disgusting.
Well, there's one thing we don't have to worry about, and this is a positive. There's a setting of an example by Assange as well as Chelsea Manning. And that is the tradition in a show trial is they work real hard on signed confessions. And then they go ahead, yes, you've signed it, you've confessed, and you think that's going to help them get off and be excused. No, that's usually when they go ahead and do the final solution.
Yeah.
And this final solution could be life in prison. So I wouldn't be surprised, but we don't have to worry about it. Assange is not going to sign that. After all this he's gone through, is he, oh yeah, I did this, and I'll do this, get me off. And it looks like this Chelsea Manning has courage too.
Yeah,
and you think
back to jail.
I mean, she's back in jail because they wanted to use her in helping to set this stage where they can use her testimony against Assange. So I would say, if we're looking for some positive, look for the positive character traits of these two individuals, because one thing for sure, they're going to stick to their guns. And the one thing that we can be sure is that most of the prosecution will be sticking to their guns of ignoring the rule of law, and that they're going to march ahead and not really consider a fair trial. You know, this is the whole thing. They're going to extradite him here to the United States to get a fair trial. I think that's sort of a mockery of what should be done, of having a trial in the land of the home and free of the brave, because we just these recent events, the last couple years of all this election scandal and how the FBI was used in the Justice Department. I mean, no, people have lost confidence, and if this contributes to the loss of confidence, this is a benefit, because people shouldn't be overconfident. They should understand how our system works. And it shouldn't be saying, you know, let's say somebody was unfairly treated overseas, or there was a controversy, and well, he's a good American and he's going to get an American trial. I want to come home, or I want to go to America. They're known to have fair trials. But I don't think our reputation is like that. Now, that might be the last place Assange wants to go.
Yeah.
He might pick almost any country over being tried in this country.
Very sad, very sad. And, you know, I think, as Dr. Paul said, you know, the free press is not the only thing under attack. Free speech is not the only thing under attack. Really, it's our own minds that are under attack, our own perceptions, the way we can receive and process information. If learning the truth about what our government does is illegal, then we have no way of challenging. Then we truly live in a complete totalitarian system, where not only do we not oppose the government, we can't even think outside the box. So I would just echo what Dr. Paul says. If you've ever considered contacting your representatives respectfully, contacting the White House respectfully, writing letters, alerting your friends, this is going to take a sustained effort, not just a day or two, a sustained effort. People in the streets demonstrating in favor of Assange. This is our own future. This is our own country that's at stake. And so we have to take this very seriously.
Very good. And as bad as it is, we still have some options. We still do have freedoms. We still have these programs. We still can speak out. We still have the internet, even with the shortcomings. And I was overly optimistic about the internet because it's not smooth sailing, but it's available. We still get information out over the internet. So we can look at it and say that something is available. It's better than when we only had 3 major networks and we got everything from the major network. So we have to keep pounding away to get information out, because that is the only thing. Truth is the important issue. And I think that the American people are ripe for it. Just having gone through these last 2 or 3 years of this nonsense at the FBI and the judicial system, people ought to say, there's something wrong with this. And what is it? Maybe we should look at this more carefully. And there is a reason why we should have all Americans looking at this case more carefully if they think it's important that the American people can speak out, and that the people who report and print it and write and get on TV and internet, they have to be protected. Because remember, the First Amendment to the Constitution was the right of free speech and talking to people and assembly. So that is key, and I always believe that was a great positioning of that amendment, because if we can't talk and we get put in prison for talking, even if it's imperfectly, that's bad news. So we'd like to stop the bad news and turn this around and make it good news and activate and energize people who need to get this information out. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.